George, thank you very much for joining us here on AU Manufacturing Conversations.
Thanks for having us, Brent.
Well, thank you, Brent. Great to see you in Geelong.
Well, it's great to be here and great to be in your office. It's been a while. The first question we like to ask guests is, how did you get here and what do you make? Either of you can pick it up and I'll just sit back and listen.
Perhaps you can start with a bit of history, Ross.
Okay, so the history is really interesting. The company has got origins back to my grandfather, and it even goes back further than that. My great-grandfather worked in commercial refrigeration, which was developed in Geelong, and he installed the first commercial refrigeration in South America, which came out of Geelong in the 1890s. So we're lucky we've got a wonderful engineering heritage. So that's how I came to be here. I've always been passionate about engineering and the possibilities for engineering and what good engineering can do for us, for the community, for the country.
And Lyn, what's your story?
In my previous life, I was a lawyer, and then I became interested in what Ross was doing at Austeng and becoming part of the business. Also gave me some flexibility when the children were young, so the two things meshed together. Become absolutely passionate about manufacturing as a way of, I suppose, to solve the important challenges that face the world, but also as a means for stimulating jobs and economic prosperity, and just really enjoyed being part of working in your own business too. The challenges of that, if something goes well, you get the direct benefits. If not so well, you really can only blame yourselves. Yeah, and I suppose the autonomy, be able to make your own decisions, not sort of answering to other people. So the owners of a business, we're really quite nimble as an SME. We can decide if we want to invest in a startup company. We'll talk about that later. But it stacks up. We make that decision pretty quickly. If we decide we don't want to do something, or we don't do it. So that autonomy is really, I think, fantastic. Yeah.
And you came into the business about 93. Is that around about when you joined?
Yes. So I was in commercial litigation prior to that, but with a commercial bent. So I was able to leverage my commercial experience, I suppose, and bring it to the company.
I'd like to know a little bit more, please, about the heritage side of things. You touched on it earlier, Ross. Could you say something about some of the work that's been done over the years and your place in Geelong?
So Geelong's had an interesting evolution, and obviously the company in its various forms reflects that. My grandfather supplied parts to International Harvester, Ford, Alcoa, Pilkington Glass. So all the Geelong-based automotive businesses, which have now sort of completely disappeared. So we reflect the journey that Geelong's been on. Certainly a lot of our business in the early days when I joined was around that automotive supply chain. The automotive industry had lots of wonderful engineering problems that we provided solutions for. So our history has always been, in this form of the company, has been engineering solutions, and it's evolved from engineering solutions to the large manufacturing sector, now into engineering solutions more for startups and new technologies.
You mentioned the automotive industry that disappeared. You were a supplier to Ford.
Ford wouldn't count us as a major supplier because we're a small company, but they were a major customer for us. But it was that whole supply chain. So all of the car companies were our customers in various forms. So Ford, Nissan, Holden, Toyota, Mitsubishi, and then their suppliers, the Pilkingtons, the Bendix brakes, Ajax fasteners, GD filters were all customers of ours. And so when the Apex companies left, obviously that took all of their suppliers with them, and we were in that servicing that supply chain. So that part of our business just completely disappeared overnight.
So we really had to decide what we were going to do from there and when and how we were going to transition. And so we really had to think back what was our unique value proposition. So we were special purpose equipment for industry space, and vertically integrated with engineers, designers, drafties and trades. So we really decided that in fact one of our strengths was actually working with early stage technologies. That's where we started to work with a number of startups and universities, taking their concept or idea, turning them into a prototype or commercial production facility to prove to the outside world, normally investors, that it actually worked. And then, of course, once we started working closely with startup companies, we realised that a lot of them didn't have a lot of money. They'd got to a certain stage and exhausted their funds. So we really did start on the journey with them, to work closely with them to help them to commercialise their technology. And we would offer Ross's engineering advice and my own commercial advice. to assist them on their journey. So in return, each company was different. We've sort of negotiated either an exclusive manufacturing licence and or some equity in the company. So that means that it really is a bit more of a partnership than the normal relationship you would have. So when we started out, we thought we've got equity in about 8 companies at the moment. Mm-hmm. And when we started off, we thought, maybe one would do well. But none of them are doing very well at the moment. So I suppose watch this space and see how they go.
Let's hear about some of those promising 8 companies if you feel like sharing some details.
Which one should we start off first? It's like choosing between your children.
Which is your favourite kid?
Perhaps Capricorn Power, the waste heat to energy engine.
Sure. Capricorn Power is a technology that takes waste heat. In fact, it takes any heat, but they're targeting waste heat, and converts it to electrical energy at about 2 or 3 times the thermodynamic efficiencies of current technologies. It's also efficient at low scale, so you don't need to build large plants to get the thermodynamic efficiencies that you do with other technologies. And the beauty of it is that it's completely agnostic to its heat source, so it can get its heat source from exhaustive engines, thermal oxidizers, afterburners, heat treatment equipment. And I don't know where this figure comes from, but allegedly 70% of Australia's heat is wasted. So it captures some of that heat and turns it into electricity. And in fact, if you couple it with certain technologies such as pyrolysis, it's theoretically possible you could get renewable, dispatchable, carbon positive electricity from this technology. So we're really excited about that.
That's a good one. Let's perhaps look at some others. FormFlow, full disclosure, I'm a tiny shareholder, so the audience knows I'm being straight with them. Tell me about FormFlow.
Yeah, FormFlow is a really interesting technology. It's a bending corrugated iron at precise angles, 90 degrees or 60 degrees. Doesn't sound very exciting, but it's actually world-first technology based on complex algorithms and the principles of origami. When the founders, Matt Dingle and Matthias, always came to us and said that they had this technology and could we assist them, I think there was some general scepticism from the tradies that it could work. But so we've actually worked very closely with them from the outset, and we worked on a prototype model to prove that it works, and then the first commercial production facility for the 90-degree bend. So basically, in this space, builders get very excited because you don't need cappings or flashings, and architects get very excited because you can come up with all sorts of different angles. So they're working closely in the building industry. They've also got a separate arm, FormFlow Living, in relation to the modular space, and they're doing some excellent work. And also they've got a suite of new technologies that's coming up in relation to structural panels, insulated panels, and also technology around actually measuring their forming process as well, I understand. Yeah, so they've got a suite of new technologies coming up as well.
One I really like is polymeric powders, which is, again, a world-first technology. Our customer is able to take recycled shredded tyres, grinds it down and treats it in such a way that it can chemically reactivate the surface of the rubber and then chemically bond that with recycled plastic. So it makes a composite material which upcycles rubber and upcycles plastic. So it addresses some pretty significant environmental problems and makes a new composite material which has potentially got an enormous number of applications. It's a circular economy technology, and one of the things I like about it is it's an upcycling technology. It's even better than recycling.
An amazing little company. It's a surprise it hasn't taken the world by storm, but I guess you've got to be patient.
Yes, my description is it's a solution looking for applications, looking for problems, and I think that's the challenge for the customer at the minute is actually going out there and finding the applications. I mean, I think at a broader picture, now is the right time to have circular economy, environmental technologies. I think since our government announced net zero by 2050, and generally the world sort of attitude, we had some technologies 15 years ago which no one was interested in. Now the marketplace is interested in those. I think customers are looking for licenses to operate. They're looking to respond to shareholders. They're looking to respond to stakeholders. Looking to respond to customers. So I think a lot of these technologies we're talking about today will really come into their own in the next few years.
I think it's also true to say that COVID was quite challenging for a couple of our startups. And generally, in my view, the environment to attract funding in Australia is a much more difficult environment, especially in the manufacturing space where the cost of the scale-up is greater. But the latest with polymeric powders is that they have got a sustainability grant, and nice. So they're working with us and the Barrier Group to do a small-scale production run to produce
Speed humps.
Speed humps, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's a really important step. Once they've proved that, they're hopeful that the next step they'll be able to attract funding for a large-scale commercial scale up with their factory. So that's where they're at. But, yeah, as I said, COVID and the challenges around attracting investment is always difficult for these early-stage manufacturing startups.
Well, I know that's a topic you're passionate about, and we might perhaps return to it. I wouldn't hate it if you did. You've mentioned some of the work you're involved in and your pivot to a tech enabler company as well as some other work. Let's hear about some of the other work that you're involved in. You've got quite a spread of little projects, from funeral type equipment to weird special purpose stuff for universities. Let's hear about some of the other work, please.
Maybe the first one that I really like is an alternative to concrete. Concrete by itself amounts to, I think it's 8% of the world's carbon emissions. So certainly getting rid of concrete is going to be very significant. It's apparently the world's second most used material. And again, probably a few of those things need a fact check. So the geopolymer is a product that behaves like concrete, but it's got a very, very small greenhouse footprint. And it's actually the product that we're working with in collaboration with other companies has actually got better flexural strength. It's acid resistant, salt resistant, caustic resistant, it's thermally stable at very high temperatures. So it's actually a better performing material than concrete, and it's got an incredibly small footprint. We're reinforcing it. Instead of reinforcing with steel, we're reinforcing it with GFRP, glass-fibre-reinforced polymer. And the GFRP is immune to concrete cancer, so it doesn't rust like conventional reinforcing. So we've got a product, this GFRP reinforced geopolymer, which is, so the bridges we've done for the City of Greater Geelong, we've said they're 100 years maintenance free. In theory, they're way more than 100 years maintenance free. They won't suffer from concrete cancer. Vandals can't light a fire underneath and burn them. They're actually sitting in quite acidic soil. They'll be quite happy sitting in that acidic soil. So that's a product that provides a much longer life. So its life cycle costs are much less, and it's got an incredibly small greenhouse footprint. So that's one of the ones we're really excited about.
And you alluded to the fact, one of the few standard things we do, we actually work in the cemetery and crematorium industry. So that's an interesting topic of discussion at dinner parties. But we've probably been involved in that industry for over 30 years. So we started off, I had an overseas licence to maintain cremators, but then that sort of morphed into manufacturing. And once we were involved in that industry, we found that there was a lot of engineering challenges, particularly around OH&S. So we've really developed, a suite of products in relation to that industry, whether it's grave covers, graveside safety fences,
catafalques, transfer vans, mausoleum interment, precast graves, charge beers, coffin trolleys. So we like to think we're the sort of the premier engineering solutions provider into that industry. And as we've spoken about before, at the minute it's making about 30% of our business, so it's quite significant. And certainly in the downturn, when auto left, that was a sector that actually sort of did keep our business alive for a while we transitioned the other part of our business.
And so that really brings us into our interest in hydrogen. Cremators are obviously fueled by natural gas, and a lot of our large crematorium customers are very, very interested in reducing the greenhouse gas impact of the crematorium emissions.
Yep, yeah, that's great. And in fact, when the government announced net zero by 2050, quite a few of our customers rang up and said, what is Austeng doing to get us off fossil fuels? But there was some nervousness around hydrogen. Hydrogen is obviously, it's got a lot of attention, but a lot of people were nervous about it. So we've actually set up a demonstration here. We've now demonstrated that on an existing gas burner without modification, we can inject up to about 40% hydrogen and operate. So it provides a really good step for our customers to start a transition to reduce their CO2 footprint, reduce their use of fossil fuels. And in doing that, that'll help set up supply chains, it'll help set up production of the hydrogen. So that's a really exciting one, and that's got a whole lot of interest. And we believe from the regulator and our suppliers that we're the first to actually have a hydrogen blend burner running on a Type B appliance, on just a commercial run-of-the-mill. It's not a research thing. It's just we've just plugged hydrogen into a commercial appliance and done all the tweaking and the working out and the figuring what we needed to do to actually get it running on a 40% hydrogen blend.
Right, and it's the goal to take that blend up to a higher and higher...
Yeah, absolutely. What we're trying to do for a start is while the supply chains get established, there's potentially a business risk for our customers. If the delivery truck doesn't turn up, they've still got to keep their business going. So initially what we're doing is we're setting up to run on a hydrogen blend, but it'll still run on 100% natural gas, so we can ensure our customers they've got business continuity. And then when the supply chains are set up and everyone's comfortable, we can then take the next step to go to 100% hydrogen.
Right, and that has applications quite a way beyond just crematoria.
Oh, absolutely. Any high temperature application is potentially a case for us. I think in low temperature applications, burners will be replaced with electricity, but in high temperature applications where you actually need flame temperatures, and cremation's a case in point, but there's a whole lot of other applications as well where you'll need flame temperatures, and that's where hydrogen will really come into its own.
And so we've spoken about some of the startups, some of the novel work, and we haven't mentioned Deakin University, which often has a place in this for you guys, and you have what seems a fairly strong link with the university and its researchers. Tell me about the importance of that in your community and some of the good things that have come out of it.
Yeah, I think Deakin University has been really pivotal in relation to the Geelong manufacturing ecosystem, and really I think they were one of the real forerunners of encouraging industry-university collaboration. I mean, they've really got world-class researchers, but the question was, how does industry even know what's going on out there, let alone be able to work closely? And I think Jane
Den Hollander
was a real pioneer. She really made that decision early on and invested time and money in relation to making that happen. And I think Carbon Revolution, I think that was probably a really good example. They were heavily involved with Carbon Revolution. A number of other companies they've been a shareholder in, Fortho's another example, but they've really invested in their industry arm to make that connection. And what they're doing now out there at the moment is just amazing.
Certainly the Manu Futures precinct is incredibly interesting to walk through, and I love walking through that, from the compact 3D printed heat exchangers to the lightweight bike wheels to the fire training simulation equipment, their helmets and protective gear. It's diverse.
It's an engineer's paradise.
Yeah, that's right. It's an engineer's toy shop, thank you. But it shows, and I know you and I have spoken before about this, Brent, but the opportunities that are out there to create employment, to create new innovations, to create export are just huge. And I think the space that's been created with the large automotive leading and these businesses emerging out of the ashes of that, I think history will show will be fantastic. But yeah, it's certainly for us. Deakin was involved in the geopolymer, they're involved in form flow, they're involved in our geopolymer bridges, are still involved in our geopolymer bridges, they're doing some research for us now. So even for an SME like us, they've been involved in quite a few projects, and they've been, if it wasn't for Deakin's involvement, some of them wouldn't have gone as far as they have. Another
question about the Geelong ecosystem. The Geelong Manufacturing Council, of which you're a chair, Lyn. Tell me about some of the work that's involved in and what it's done over the years, and the happy occasion that is its 25th anniversary.
Yes, so Geelong Manufacturing Council is celebrating their 25th year in operation. So we've got a celebration dinner out at the Avalon Airport during the air show week. So that's very exciting. Yeah, look, I suppose over the years, the three pillars of the Geelong Manufacturing Council, I suppose, are in relation to always promoting capability and expertise, being a real advocate and lobbying on behalf of manufacturing, the importance of manufacturing, and also networking, the ability to create connections. So that's been the really constant theme throughout the 25 years. In terms of, I suppose, pointing to any particular projects, we've had a number of projects, one in relation to, which ran for about 6 years, really promoting those connections and collaborations between Deakin University and local industry. So that was excellent. We've had another project, Clean Tech Innovations Geelong. We worked with the City of Greater Geelong on that project. That went for Clean Tech 1, CRG 1 and 2. That was for about 6 years. We were instrumental in relation to setting up the Advanced Fibre Cluster. We've also set up a Women in Manufacturing network. That's something that I'm passionate about. In terms of that, we've created a mentoring program, which has been very successful over the years, and also GLAM program, Girls Leading Advanced Manufacturing. So that's really going out to the high schools, local schools, and encouraging girls who might be interested to think about manufacturing, taking them out on various site visits and giving them exposure to manufacturing jobs, which I think longer term are very stimulating and well paid, and just making them realise just what's out there. And that's also been very successful. We've recently received a federal government grant to extend that program, not just within Geelong, but throughout Ballarat, Bendigo and Colac for the next 2.5 years. So that's been our latest project that I'm very proud of. But also generally, it's all about creating an environment that is positive for Geelong manufacturers, and also if a company is interested in setting up in Geelong, the GMC is often the first port of call for them to make inquiries as to how and when they can set up.
And so to return to the company, you mentioned some sort of projects and companies with an environmental focus. Tell me about the opportunity you see in environmental technology and how you've moved towards that in recent years.
So the opportunities, I think, are huge. I think, as I said before, there's a big movement in the market. Government are throwing money at it. Large corporates, obviously Twiggy Forrest is the case in point, throwing money at this. So, obviously polymeric powders is a circular economy technology. Capricorn Power is a renewable energy. There's another project we haven't spoken about on this session, which is a technology to actually recycle oak barrels. So instead of a scarce resource in the timber being used, this Australian-grown technology rejuvenates the barrels so they can be used over and over and over again and still maintain extremely good wine quality. And they're just some examples of the things that I think that we're working on at the minute, and there are other things that will come up in the future, which may include pyrolysis technology, obviously electrolyzers, which couple in with our hydrogen. I think then there's some really good research being done in Australia to improve electrolysis technologies. So if you're 30 today, you've got a whole career between now and 2050 in this space, and that's certainly where our young people here, our young engineers and tradesmen, have got their eye on that. They've got a whole career in fixing the problems that we've created in the last 150 years.
Lynn mentioned earlier that it's an exciting time to be a manufacturer for the reason that, the business is often solving problems, environmental or otherwise, and there's a lot of work to do and a lot of opportunity attached to it.
And I think in combination with that, and yes, you're dead right, I think in combination with that, we just had a conversation with a potential customer before you came in around sovereign capability. And I think COVID's brought that out. I think European wars have brought that out. So I think if we can develop sovereign capability in that clean energy space, it's going to tick a whole lot of boxes. And I think there's a real recognition there that we need to do that. And obviously for a company like us, that's perfect.
And so this is the part of the podcast where I like to invite guests to mount a soapbox of their choosing. I like to ask the question, is there an issue within manufacturing that's not getting the attention it deserves? What do you guys have to say?
Yes, well, I would have said before COVID an appreciation of manufacturing and the importance of manufacturing. But as Ross has mentioned, since COVID, I think there has been a real change in attitude. The importance of having a local supply chain. So in times of crises, that we can protect capability, local capability. And also, again, defence is becoming much more of an issue. And again, that really underlines the importance of local sovereign capability. We just cannot keep on just simply exporting our minerals without any value add. It's just not a sustainable model. And I think there's a real change of attitudes, which I really do welcome. I suppose if I wanted to jump on my soapbox, I would jump on about local procurement and local capability connected to my first point. We've got a number of rules and regulations, legislation and various tiers of government about the importance of local procurement and purchasing locally. But I just think it's just so easy to get around those rules. You really run a bus through them. And I really liked that those rules be tightened up. And also, I just mentioned quickly, we did the geopolymer bridges as part of an innovation for procurement program with the City of Greater Geelong. And that's actually like local procurement, but a real twist. It's a UK concept, and the whole model is around promoting local innovation, particularly in the clean tech space. And it actually takes an issue or a challenge and puts it out there and invites companies to come up with various solutions. So it's an EOI process. Then they shortlist those companies, actually give money for further research to take place, and then they put out the tender and finally choose the successful tenderer. And that was the process around the geopolymer bridges. And that meant that we really came up with a solution, formed connections with the local people in our group, which was, of course, Deakin, Rockler, as well as Incomat in relation to the glass-fibre-reinforced rods. And that really has put us in a position where we're hoping to commercialise that further in the future.
So that's more or less all we have time for. Is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't covered above? The floor's all yours.
So, thank you very much. I think one of the challenges for manufacturing is if manufacturing is going to grow, we're going to recruit more people. I think we've got to spend a lot more time in schools, and when I'm talking about schools, I'm talking about the year 8s, 9s, 10s, when the students are choosing subjects, and we need to get them to choose STEM subjects. If there's less students choosing STEM, we've got to inspire people about manufacturing. It's a great career. There's huge rewards. There's a whole lot of good we can do. And we as industry, we as a community need to get into the schools. We need to talk to the careers teachers. We need to talk to the principals. We need to talk to parents. We need to talk to students and actually demonstrate how good manufacturing is as a useful career. If you want to change the environment, manufacturing is the place to do it. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to put a lot of attention, a lot of focus on. And that's my soapbox.
Indeed.
Particularly women as well. The percentage of women in manufacturing is very low, and if we can encourage young women to consider manufacturing as well, it would be fantastic.
I spoke to a pretty well-known entrepreneur a while ago who's a very good engineer and commercialiser of IP from universities, and the conversation was around some comments that the group of 8 had mentioned around attracting engineers to manufacturing. And he said, if you're looking at the university level, that's way too late to get people interested in manufacturing. You've got to aim much younger and create that pipeline, because if you're not out there telling them what an important industry it is and what a wonderful future you can have, then you're sort of failing.
Yeah, which is why you need to do it that year 8, year 9, year 10. And certainly for my sins, I'm the chair of the advisory board at the Geelong Tech School, which is aiming to capture those kids and give them real life industry-based projects to do in those year groups and with industry involvement. And Ford have got projects in there, we've got projects in there, Bar and Water have got projects in there, TAC, the list goes on. And that's really engaging those students. We're starting to see that there's more students choosing STEM as a consequence of being involved in the tech school, in the GLAM program, and in the parallel program. The GLAM is GFLOY, which is
Geelong Futures Leaders
of Industry. And there's really good evidence. I spoke to someone the other day that said their daughter chose engineering because of those programs. And that's what we need to do, exactly as your guy said, is get them way before university.
Awesome. Well, it's been a wonderful chat, and it's always a pleasure to visit you guys here. Thanks for having us, and thanks for being on AU Manufacturing Conversations.
Thank you so much for having us.